Very warm welcome to this Vox Solutions webinar. My name is James Williams. I'm the VP of Business Development with a company called XConnect. XConnect, the largest messaging companies in the world, are our clients. We help route voice and messaging effectively through our global authoritative number data. Now, we're very neutral, and therefore it's great to be here moderating this webinar on a topic I absolutely love. Many of you have known me over the years, talk about business messaging rather a lot, and we're going to be talking about that today, but with a little bit of a different angle. We're going to be talking about the topic of artificial intelligence in the world of application to person, A2P business messaging. Now, business messaging is something that is all around us. It's growing. There are over 300 million listed businesses around the world, but actually only a small percentage of these businesses have actually started to use business messaging fully. And there are a number of reasons around that. And we're not going to be unpacking all of those, but let's just say AI will make business messaging more compelling and easier for many organizations that have not started using it today. But with business messaging increasing, that means there's more money in the sector. And where money flows, fraud follows. So AI has very much a dual role to focus on in the world of application to person business messaging. And I'm pleased to be joined today by a number of speakers from around the world who are very familiar with the topic of business messaging and indeed AI. So first up, I'm pleased to be joined by Alan Murphy, who is the VP of Engineering from Vox Solutions. Pleased to be joined by Pavel, also, who is the VP of Sales with Vox. Stanley, who manages the strategic partner relationships over in Asia for Vox, and Manix, who comes from Ditto Philippines, a mobile operator. So it's going to be fantastic hearing his insights into what might or might not be happening with AI in the Philippines and beyond. So first of all, we never assume anything in any webinar, and some of you might be new and have never heard of Vox Solutions. So I'd like to introduce Stanley Mancini now to take it away. And Stanley, if you can just tell the audience, please, who you are and what Vox does.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you, James. I like your statement when you say, where money flows, fraud follows. You know, I wonder what can you do to stop this fraud from following. Anyway, that's Vox is all about. I'm Stanley Manzini. I'm the Strategic Partnerships Director for Vox. And Vox is a multi-award winning technology solutions provider. And our main goal is to help MNOs all around the world, how to help them turn their pain points into a new profitability. And we help them optimize, we help them improve their revenues, and we also help them prevent the revenue leakage. And we help them improve their A2P revenues for both SMS and voice solutions. And as Vox, I mean, we have worked, I mean, we are also a market leader in the field of A2P monetization. We've got more than 30 projects which are in implementation today. And I'm happy to also mention that we are the only player who addresses A2P voice monetization. Not only did we just implement, but we have case studies where we have implemented the solution and we've got happy clients. I think we can move to the next slide. Now, the other thing also that we need to do is that if you are a technology solutions provider and you are helping MNOs all around the world, you need to make sure that you cover all the channels. You protect all the channels. As a result, we've got the P2A SMS that we can also stop the fraud and abuse there, because a lot of fraudsters always find either new channels to use. So you need to be able to make sure that you cover all of them. Also, we have innovative pricing. You know, when you look at other MNOs today, I mean, they only have one price for SMS, but we are able to have innovative pricing where it's use case based. And if you are having a separate, you can have a separate price for OTP message. You can have a different price for promotion, for example. That's innovation. Now, amongst others, we can go to the other slide. Now, amongst others, we've gotten a lot of awards. I mean, it's a lot of awards. I mean, if you see here, we've got the best flash call authentication solution, because it's good for someone to say that I got awards 20 years ago or 15 years ago. but we are talking about recent awards. And if you look here, we are talking about awards older 2023, and some awards we got even in 2024. We got some awards here in 2024, which are not mentioned here. Now, the one which I want to talk about related to today's topic is the Best AI and ML Innovation Award that we won from the Global Career Awards. Now, someone asked that everyone can do AI. Everyone is talking about AI in the market. But at the end of the day, is the accuracy of your algorithm what matters. Now, the accuracy of your algorithm is the one that put us on top, because now we are able to detect and we are able to monitor and we are able to monetize. But now, if you don't have a good accuracy of your algorithm, then you have a problem, because anyone can say, I've got AI, but their accuracy is 60% or it's 70%. Remember, at the end of the day, we have to have a winning customer. And at the end of the day, a happy customer, or rather a satisfied customer, is the best strategy of all. So if we are here to protect, to prevent fraud, to prevent revenue leakage, we need to make sure that our technology is geared up and it's ready to change the market and make the difference. Thank you. That is all about Vox. I'm sure you're going to hear more from my...
That's for sure, Stanley, that's for sure. But very, very good points. And at the end of the day, in the business messaging industry, it's the enterprises, it's the businesses, the organizations. And let's please not forget that it's not just companies that are there for profit, that are active in the business messaging A2P sector. There's so many other sectors people might not necessarily think about, such as governmental departments, healthcare, and many other types of organizations. Because in many surveys, when individuals ask, oh, how many business messages, A2P SMS, for example, have you received this month? And in a survey, people do not view the messages they receive. It might be from their place of worship, it might be from their doctor, their dentist, organizations like that, as being from businesses, but they are. So business messaging is actually far bigger than you might expect. And what we all have got to remember, many of you watching this webinar now, and indeed recordings of it, what we have got to remember is that we might be in the business messaging business or touching it with whatever we might do. But at the end of the day, we might be a little bit sometimes hung up over which channel to use for this. No, you should be using that for another use case. But enterprises, the people actually paying our bills, they don't care. Well, they care about outcomes. And this is what AI can really deliver, concrete, great outcomes. Now, Stanley mentioned it, AI. So lots of people say they have AI and they're using it. But what is AI? How is it being used? How might it be used in the future? And this is where definitely somebody who can shed a huge amount of light on this, who's been working in the field of AI for a decade, is Alan Murphy, the VP of Engineering. So welcome, Alan. Hi.
Thanks, James. Hi, everybody. So, yeah, I thought I'd put up one of the memes I've seen going around, Wolf of Wall Street, sell me this pen. And of course, everybody's answer these days is, my product has AI in it. And that's supposed to, sell it. But exactly as you guys have been saying, it has to be effective. Are you using AI effectively? James, you mentioned about working in AI for 10 years. Well, actually in messaging a bit longer, maybe 15 years, but I've been doing AI for 20 odd years in various ways. What I want to do, given that I'm VP of Engineering, is just go a little bit into AI itself so that people can understand why now. Why is AI making, but why is the hype there, right? Why is it so important that we understand the capabilities of AI, where it's going, and the impact that that has on business messaging? We already have a huge amount of impact from AI or machine learning in this industry for the last 10 or 15 years. A lot of it behind the scenes, a lot of it is, as was mentioned before, about fraud and analysis of messaging. Mostly it's statistical, mostly it's, looking at kind of large volumes and looking for anomalies. But the differences now, as I'll explain, are truly breathtaking. So if we can go to the next slide, please, Christina. Okay, this is the only science slide I have, right? So please don't be afraid of this. This is AI, right? On the left, you have this little small picture, and believe it or not, AI has been around for well over 50 years. I think it was the 50s that the perceptron was first brought out. The biggest issue is training data and computation. So when we look at all the AI that's been done over the many years, we've had the techniques, but it's only in the last 10 or 15 years that we've been able to access a huge amount of data to train up the models so much that we can get these new capabilities. So back, I think it was 2009, we were working on messaging to identify fraud with a machine learning technique called SVM, support vector machines. We had neural nets, things like that. These things took a lot of training. You know, you had to manually label everything, multilingual, everything had to have its own model. And, you know, again, it was, you know, effective at the beginning. But of course, when you're dealing with things like fraud, and as you say, where the money flows, there's an incentive for people to update their techniques. And therefore, they'll start finding ways around it. And it was pretty easy to find ways around the AI that we originally had in messaging. And the other thing is you couldn't trust it. You couldn't trust it to make a blocking decision. Fast forward then to maybe 10 or 12 years ago, and you hear about deep learning. Oh, sorry, Christine, I'm not finished there. You hear about deep learning, right? So everybody knows, you know, there was a kind of a sea change in AI. It started to kind of come out. The biggest difference here is, as I say, is that large amount of training data from the internet, from various corpuses of data. Like, you know, we can do Google Translate now. Where did that come from? You know, it came from all of the data being available, the computation being available to create these large models. And you see more and more of this creation allowing the machine learning to understand what's happening, the semantic understanding. This is what I believe is the key breakthrough that helps us in business messaging, that helps us in our industry now. Because rather than looking at, you know, using machine learning for statistical anomalies, things like that, the machine learning can understand what's happening. No matter the language, it can understand what people are trying to say, the context of what people are doing. And that helps us then in, as I mentioned here, sentiment analysis, text classification. You know, is it an A2P message or not? Machine translation. But think about the amount of time and effort all of the companies in the industry use for identifying spam or identifying fraudulent messages in all the different languages. Humans have to do that. But now a machine learning system can take that place of the low-level work there. But fast forward now to what everybody has been seeing, so ChatGPT, but you know, it was a little bit before that, and transformers. This is where the large amount of data just got supercharged. And the more data and the bigger the models became, we started to see that these transformers, which were kind of like next word predictors, they started to have emergent capabilities. So now you can effectively kind of, you know, not just guess what the next word is going to be. It will actually do something for you. The bigger the model, the more it can do things like rewrite my email in a more professional way. You know, how is that possible? It's possible because, well, I guess we all don't understand completely, but the larger the model, the more capabilities it's starting to have. And now when we think about ChatGPT and the last year and a half, 2 years, and we think about the new models that have come out and the new capabilities, every single time, every 6 months, every 12 months, there's such a huge breakthrough in what it can do. And you can see nowadays with ChatGPT 4.0, it has multimodal. You can talk to it, you can give it videos, you know, and it can understand what's going on and answer your questions and generate things. This is such a rapid change in technology. It's unbelievable, to be honest. And we're
Alan, sorry, just interrupting to your point about having this training data. And many people were scratching their heads, say, why would Elon Musk spend, I think it was $44 billion on then Twitter? But it's really become clear as to why he made that investment, because you have actually the huge, one of the largest potential live training environments for AI on the planet in real time. So it's vast amounts of real life data from real individuals all over the planet available. And that is the holy grail. So yeah, really good point.
Absolutely. And the more data you have, but I mean, it's gotten even further now, James, because what they're doing is they're using AI to generate more data to train the models. So, you know, we're
Right.
at that point where, you know, everything is almost being consumed in order to train these big models. So we have to make more. But again, going back to business best and going back to what we want out of this. When we look at AI in general, we have to have tools that will help us with our use cases. We have to have tools that, you know, in this case, we can take advantage of those capabilities. It's semantic understanding. What's going on with the message, right? What's the real meaning? Because ultimately that allows us to drive message volumes, which is, you know, going to raise revenue for everybody, and then optimize our costs. So take away a lot of that low-level manual work that we have to do and offer new kind of use cases that we couldn't offer before because it was just too resource intensive. And I think this is where LLMs, GPT, all of that will help us, but we won't forget about the traditional, you know, older AI technologies, which also have a role to play and continue to have a role to play in what we do today. Okay, next slide, please, Christina. So as I said, driving message volumes is kind of what everybody is looking at AI for now. The Juniper report that's mentioned here, generative AI will go from 830 million to 11.2 billion in 2028. I mean, that's a staggering figure. And that's just generative AI. I think it's, you know, obviously RCS chatbots that, you know, whatever the medium's going to be. But obviously there's a lot more than just generative AI and chatbots in this industry, you know, as we mentioned, you know, stopping fraud and all that sort of stuff. Generative AI agents, I mean, this is the key thing with this. Everybody talks about this, you know, and we see it now with RCS, but, you know, it doesn't matter the medium. It could be through WhatsApp, it could be through SMS. You are talking to a bot, you're talking to an agent, and the enterprises can create these agents to scalably deal with all the customers in a personal way. And obviously, as I mentioned already, multilingual, the capabilities of these agents are just getting better and better. So this allows any enterprise to scale up very quickly without having a massive team of you know, humans to support this. I think humans will still be involved for the time being, but this allows that scalability. And of course, the more enterprises have these scalable chatbots, the more messages are going to be sent, the bigger the volume, and the more value that this can provide to that enterprise. Obviously, personalization has been, like, I started in SMS marketing in 2001. I mean, personalization was huge then, you know, find the database of people, you know, get their names, you know, personalize the text messages going to them, all of that sort of stuff, you know. But AI has a massive role here to play in personalization because it's not about a person's name or which country or age that they are. That you collect in a database, AI can determine these traits in real time. They can, as they're talking to somebody, realize they're talking to an angry customer who, you know, you need to do something to help them, right? You can plug into databases. You can do it, again, as I mentioned, in a semantic way. So you're not just looking up facts. You're able to put those facts together. You're able to personalize the message to them. You're able to actively deal and adapt to the situation. You can push.
And Alan, this is happening now. So I had a recent example last weekend where a very well-known, let's say, TV, it used to be satellite TV film provider, with millions of people in the UK and other countries around the world. For some reason, even though I've got paperless billing, they started sending me paper bills, and they were charging me 50 pence, half a British pound a month for the billing. And I was thinking, oh, it's 50p, my time to call. Oh, it's a waste of time. No, I thought, no, why should I? Because I've chosen paperless billing. They're charging me unnecessarily, sending me something I don't want. Let me call. It took me some time, but I actually got through to someone and they resolved it amazingly. So my contract essentially was torn up. I created a new contract with them for 18 months and they reduced my monthly bill by 30%. What an amazing outcome. So they knew how long I'd been with them. They could tell from my tone of voice, even though I'm always professional with contact center agents, that I was unhappy with the situation, would like it resolved. And the resolution was amazing. So I think we can definitely say with that organization, AI was in use, definitely in the background, helping the agent and possibly pushing outcomes and suggestions to the agent in real time.
And this is the word again that you use is outcome, right? So the more enterprises see that AI helping to improve outcome, right, to help their customers to solve problems faster, to upsell or complete transactions and more transactions in a quicker way, that success will mean more enterprises will want to do this. And the more enterprises that get involved in doing this, again, in a scalable way, the more messages are sent, the more our revenue increases.
Yeah, for me, what you said there, the key word was scalable, because we talk about business messaging a lot. I've mentioned consistently the fact there are over 300 million listed businesses, but barely 10% use business messaging globally. And if we talk about the ads world, digital ads world, that is worth hundreds of billions a year, whereas business messaging might be worth, say, 60 or 70 billion. So there is huge potential headroom for growth, but something holding back the business messaging industry has been, how do we get the hundreds of millions of smaller and medium-sized companies into the game with something meaningful? And I think for me, from what I'm seeing around and about, this is a real game changer, Alan, the AI component and the customization. So even small companies who might not be super tech savvy, might not have huge amounts of revenue, they can actually get into this game now and start using AI for some fantastic outcomes.
It makes it much more accessible. And of course, as a software engineer, it's great to be able to build these systems, but ultimately down the line, creating your chatbot, your agent, or creating anything related to AI will become easier and easier, because as AI evolves, it will help you do that. So maybe I won't have much of a job in a few years' time, but that's okay. I remind AI that I can help I can help AI propagate in the future. Conversational analysis. So we have the conversations. We can now use AI to analyze those conversations. Are those conversations effective? What is the kind of feedback from working with all these customers? How can we use AI to optimize this, your campaigns with your customers? So AI can be used for that kind of large bulk analysis as well, so that we can suggest to the enterprises, maybe you should phrase things in a different way. Maybe you should take a slightly different approach. And again, the more we help them optimize, the better the outcomes, the more messages are sent, right? That's just the way it should work. If we take a step back then, a general kind of industry intelligence and analysis, that if we think of those first three as kind of individual customers and individual enterprises, general marketing intelligence, what's happening on your network, what's happening with all of the messages going through, what is the nature of those messages? Are they kind of urgent messages? Are they one-time passcodes? Are they, notifications, transactions? Are they marketing? What type of messages are going across your network? What is the sentiment of those messages, that we can then provide that type of intelligence in a broader way to industries, so in general, not just to specific enterprises, so they can know what's happening out there. They can help, or we can help the kind of industries to optimize what they're doing and to target places that will improve their business. I put down here service portal, and what I really mean by that, and I think people who are dealing with RCS, for example, would understand this. When I have my phone, when I get a new electricity provider or an airline, I have to download an app, right? And ultimately, I get an app. I have hundreds of apps now on my phone. I have to figure out which one is for my local shop, whatever it is. As we move forward, our conversations with these enterprises will be through the medium of messaging, of voice, and that means that any of these enterprises, they won't need to rely as much on their own bespoke apps, which of course is a bit of a barrier. People have to download them. You have to have them for both Android and iPhone. A ubiquitous reach of SMS, the ubiquitous reach of hopefully RCS in the future, once Apple has that deployed, means that enterprises can communicate in the way that all people can communicate. That you talk to your friends, you talk to your colleagues using messaging, that this can all be done in that way. And of course, the more enterprises that move towards a kind of a service portal or chatbots and agents or that type of way rather than apps, means the more messaging will be sent. And of course,
Yeah, I love your phrase service portal. I've never heard that before. It's something new, but it's really, really good. And the fact is, most people, if they have a smartphone, they have 50, 60, 70 apps on the phone. I am no exception. I do. But the average person will use 5 of those every day, and 2 or 3 of those are going to be chat oriented anyway. So realistically, very, very few people use apps. And unless you're an enterprise delivering huge benefit and genuine special offers, which your customers cannot get anywhere else other than from the app, then people really aren't using the apps so much. And business messaging is where it is and where it will be. Yeah,
absolutely. So that's kind of one aspect of obviously, using AI to drive message volumes. The other aspect, which is kind of more traditional and something that we have been really effective at, is optimizing costs, which is on the next slide, Christina. We have been using AI and ML, not just us, many vendors and many operators in the market have been using AI and ML for the likes of fraud, to kind of help that manual effort, because it's hugely intensive. And exactly as you said, James, earlier about fraud, the money follows, or where the money goes, fraud follows, right? So that means that the attackers are usually very incentivized to update their techniques as soon as you find a way to block it, right? And ultimately, from our perspective, that means you need humans to look at it. You need to see humans finding those new techniques, and it's very manual intensive. With the new kind of semantic understanding of AI, if like traditionally, you'd say a phishing attack would come in, that phishing attack would have a certain kind of message, and then we identify the message, we're able to block the message based on the text of the message. What they're doing now, of course, is they're using AI to generate 1,000 different ways of saying, hey, please give me your bank account details, right? So it's not as effective at blocking, text that we've done in the past. But we can also use AI to help protect this. We can use AI to see what the intention of the message is. Do they intend to, ask somebody for their bank account, in whichever language, in whichever, way they're doing it? Is it an obfuscated message? As AI evolves, it can start looking at those messages in the way a human would interpret it. And that allows us then to write more effective fraud systems. And fraud and smishing is such a huge issue today across the world. I don't mention spam here, but I do believe that AI ultimately will solve spam. I think myself and yourself, James, we talked about this there recently. Spam unsolicited, right, and bulk. But one man's spam is another man's ham, right? You don't know if a customer really wanted to receive that. And I believe
correct, because Alan, what we talked about before in preparing for this call is very, very simply what most people view as spam are actually messages they are receiving from suppliers of some good or service or something or other they have actually signed up to. Unwittingly or not, they have signed up to it, buried in the small print. Downloading an app, we want access to A, B, C, D, E your whole life. People will download an app to play a game for 5 minutes each day and give access to everything on the device and think nothing of it. And this is a very weird world we live in. When we're combating fraud, we combat fraud at XConnect as well, and Vox and many others are involved in it. On the one hand, individuals will complain about a message they perceive as spam coming from possibly a well-known brand. Yet on the other hand, they have no problem literally giving access to their whole life to a random company or individual they know nothing about. So actually as well, in this anti-fraud mix, people do have a responsibility themselves as well. It's not often talked about, but individuals have to take a level of responsibility.
Agree with that. From 20 odd years ago in Ireland, creating SMS marketing, we had a lot of that, and I think it continues. But I do believe, again, as I say, AI is the solution here. However, it's AI on your phone. And as we see the technology evolve on the phones, the capabilities on the phones to analyze messages coming in, understand the owner of the phone, would they want to see this, and personalize and do that. That ultimately AI will be the answer to that. It's going to be the answer to everything, obviously, eventually with artificial general intelligence. But ultimately, that's why I don't mention spam here. We can obviously mitigate a lot of spam anyway. As you say, it is very difficult to identify whether or not they wanted to receive it. But ultimately, the answer, I think, will be a personalized service on your handset that will do that for you. But again, a lot of what I have here, we do today, right? Large-scale message analysis. So that analysis of the types of messaging going through your network. Stanley mentioned earlier about use case pricing. So we can understand the type of message that's coming through, no matter what language it is, the intention of the message, and then we can route it in the most optimal way if it's very, it needs high quality delivery because it's a very important message, or we can bulk send it for a little bit cheaper, and the delivery times can be pushed out a little bit. These can happen today. Use case pricing is obviously a corollary of that. That AI analysis of these types of messages helps us do this and can do that. And again, it goes back to that semantic understanding of what's going on with the messaging. Where Vox have been very effective, of course, as Stanley mentioned earlier, was in fighting off grey routes. We use AI heavily in our flash call and our artificial inflation of traffic protection. And this is where our awards have come from. This is where we have used AI effectively. And of course, it's not all LLMs and, because, it's scaling that up is quite tricky. This is using the right AI technique, the right tool for the job. Grey routes is one of those things that a lot of vendors, a lot of operators in the network or in the industry have to devote people to analyzing what's going on. Is it a false positive? Are these really A2P messages coming through? What are these new sources of messages coming onto my network? And being able to use AI to identify these allows companies like us to scale hugely. We don't need to have, so many humans per operator that we protect. We can use AI to do most of the work here. And now that AI has evolved to the capabilities it can do now, we're much more comfortable allowing AI to make the decision to block messages, because of course nobody wants to block legitimate messages because that prevents us all from making money. So grey routes,
fantastic. Alan, sorry about interrupting you, but we're starting to get a couple of people asking about Q&A. Very remiss as a moderator, shame on me, but I should have said, if any of you have any questions, please do drop them in the chat. So Mariam, please do drop your question in the chat for Alan, and Alan will answer that now. So go for it. Thank you.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Happy to answer the questions, but I think we've only one more slide really after this, which is really on the challenges. But with the last point I wanted to make there, in terms of costs, the manual cost of, analyzing, say for fraud, bypass routes, things like that. The last one I mentioned, it was regulatory, because we're seeing more and more where regulators around the world are making operators, protect their subscribers from various things, or they put in regulations like we know in France, where marketing messages after a certain time aren't allowed. So how do you know what's a marketing message versus a notification of a transaction on your credit card? And of course, this comes down to AI. This is the sort of thing that AI can enable, again, in a scalable way, in a cost-effective way.
There's a lot of, Alan, sorry about interrupting you, but there's a lot of work regulators have got to do, because I know just when it comes to the pure SMS perspective, there are a number of regulators out there in the world who do not understand or who do not differentiate between, for example, person-to-person and application-to-person SMS, number one. And number two, they say you're not, any company wanting to protect subscriber stakeholders is not allowed to look at the content. They might be able to look at patterns, but they can't actually look at the content. But the problem is the bad actors, they are not constrained by this. So regulation really does have to move on a lot and shackle, shall we say, unchain companies like Vox who are wanting to do the right thing and protect their customers and stakeholders around the world, and actually allow them, or certainly allow AI, the machine, shall we say, to inspect the content. It's the only way forward, surely.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. Like even in Ireland, where I'm based, that is a legal issue. So inspecting the content isn't allowed even by machines. But as you say, regulators need to take a look at this. We need to make sure that we have access to the tools to help protect subscribers from these attacks, specifically smishing and all that. But what can we do? We have talked to regulators around the world, and through GSMA, Fraud and Security Group, through other industry groups, I think I3 Forum and MEF are kind of doing this type of work to make sure people are aware of this and the regulators are aware that this needs to be done. But again, what are the alternative solutions? Maybe put something on the handset to help do this too, where the privacy issues will go away. So going on to kind of the challenges, again, we've all seen ultimately generative AI. We go to ChatGPT, we start using it. It looks cool. It's amazing. It's, the first time you use it, you can't believe something like a machine can generate this. But it also has its downsides, and hallucinations are kind of generally what's kind of bad here. But the example I have here is actually a prompt injection attack, where somebody has seen that the local car dealer is using ChatGPT for their customer agent, and they instruct it to kind of sell them a car for $1, and it says yes, and it's all legally binding. Now, of course, is it legally binding? That's up for a court to decide. But this is where things can go horribly wrong. And I think generative AI at the moment, while it is progressing, we should all be very careful about how much of a representation of your enterprise we should allow it to have. So a careful and controlled rollout of generative AI is absolutely essential. Capabilities are improving. Every 6 months, every 12 months, we're going to see this improving and improving more. But of course, and as I mentioned before, attackers will continuously try and challenge this. And this is just another angle that you need to be aware of. AI isn't free. I mean, we use ChatGPT and all that, but if you're a mobile operator or your box and you want to put in a system to look at all text messages, and you're seeing thousands of text messages per second going through, you have to process those text messages. You can't just use LLMs to ask it a question about the message every time. It takes too long. The cost of doing so is prohibitive. As I mentioned here, until we get some sort of free energy from nuclear fusion or elsewise, we're not going to be able to, there's always going to be that kind of constraint in terms of power, in terms of computation, and the cost to the enterprise. Where do you actually target LLMs? Where do you actually target other AI techniques? As I mentioned,
Alan, sorry about that. You just talking about LLMs. That we have a question from one of the participants. What type of LLMs do Vox use? Can you answer that?
Well, we do use LLMs. We use obviously we deploy LLMs on site because we can't, for privacy reasons, send messages up to kind of the likes of OpenAI's ChatGPT. We use multiple models. However, as I mentioned, the challenge here is the scaling, right? So how do you actually allow your system to do large-scale checks on messages, thousands of messages per second that are going through your network effectively? So we have a few techniques to do that. We use LLMs specifically for a lot of the low-level work that I think would be done by kind of operations team members, but we still have humans involved to kind of validate what's going on. But yes, we do use a lot of the kind of latest LLMs that you can deploy yourself. I won't go into exact details, but that is how
exactly, because proprietary. But thank you.
Yeah. But again, that's not really the key thing. I mean, these things you can install on your laptop. It's fine. The key thing here is how do you go from a telecoms grade system that has to make these decisions very quickly, and how do you actually plug that into an LLM, which can take maybe seconds to give you an answer back, and there's no way that you can do that. So this is part of the innovation that we have here in Vox.
Thank you.
The last thing, thank you for the question, by the way. I didn't want this to kind of get too technical because, obviously, if we're thinking about the impact of AI on business messaging, understanding the technology, understanding the capabilities of that, I think is very important. Understanding the opportunities for driving the message volumes, driving revenue, but also optimizing your costs is important. But understanding the challenges too. fraud is a big one. And then the last thing I mentioned is expertise. Ultimately, is there enough expertise out there to help you and help all the enterprises and network operators to take advantage of AI, as it's such a fast-moving and continuously improving area? Are you aware of all the latest technology and the advances that it can do? And again, James, as we discussed before, the answer to this is probably AI itself. At some point, AI will evolve to the point where you just ask the AI, what's the story? And it will help you. It'll be your expert. So in terms of challenges, there are many challenges. I think, there's logistical challenges, the computation, the cost, there's the hallucinations, there's the expertise, and of course, the access to this technology by fraudsters is means we're going to have that arms race. We're going to have the cat and mouse game as we've always had in this industry.
Yeah, I think the days of let my people talk to your people are gone. It's let my AI talk to your AI, and let's get an evening sorted to go out and have some fun socially as well. Our AIs are going to be organizing all of that for us.
I get, yeah. Joel, that's an interesting one to finish this part of the webinar on, because 20 odd years ago when I was in college, and I had a lecturer who was talking about agents, and he was saying, in the future we're going to have agents. So we need car insurance. Your agent will go and negotiate with all the car insurance companies and get you that. And now I can see this, right? I can see you can see examples of this, where Google have shown that it can call your local hairdresser and set up an appointment. But if you think about it, as humans access agents, whether they're on their phone or wherever, that work on their behalf, their communication may be automated, but may go through the same messaging channels that you would manually go through, therefore driving the revenue. So again, if you want car insurance, you're going to see all these messages coming from somebody's handset. May not be them, maybe their AI personal assistant. But again, it's driving the revenue. Not everybody's going to be
exactly. So great for the world of business messaging, but certainly adds a whole huge level of complexity and, let's say, this issue of scale, which you mentioned, for combating the fraud. But Alan, thank you. Very, very interesting. Brilliant. So we have had very, very nice and quietly and calmly, we've had Mannix, Mr. Mannix Moya. Mannix, you've been very quiet. We haven't called upon you yet. So great to have you with us here on the show. And thank you for joining us all the way from the Philippines. Could you introduce yourself and your company, Ditto Philippines?
Yeah, Mannix Moya. I'm head of career business for Ditto Telecommunications in the Philippines. We are the third player in the Philippines, and currently we have around 12 million subscribers.
Okay, thank you. So a couple of general questions to get us started. So I remember many, many years ago, because I've been in telecoms a long time, 25 years ago, I was working for a manufacturer and producer of SMSC equipment. And I remember the highest throughput SMSC we had in the world was in the Philippines. So
Yes.
this is going back many, many years. People in the Philippines loved their SMS. Is SMS and is business messaging as a whole used a lot in the Philippines still today?
Yes, primarily because of its universality. Most of our subscribers are prepaid industry-wide, and a lot of them don't have internet connection when they're mobile. Only around 26% has internet connection. So definitely, business messaging, A2P SMS is important because especially when they are being validated by whatever transactions they may be having at that time. So yes, it's still very popular here. But as you mentioned earlier, along with that is fraud.
Yeah, and have you seen within your network this year, Alan raised the point of phishing and smishing, SMS phishing. Has that increased markedly in the past couple of years?
I think it hasn't stopped, but been tapered a bit by the SIM registration act that we have here. Also depends on your phone. The phone itself can filter these messages. It's a continuous battle. And with AI, the expectation, of course, from us carriers is basically we should be able to address fraud proactively and anticipate when the fraudsters are changing their techniques. We should, AI should be able to help us adapt and counter these fraudulent activities moving forward.
Can I see what's your strategy within the mobile operator? Now, you talk about AI, so clearly you're knowledgeable about the area of AI, what it can be used for. Are you within Ditto Philippines already using some form of AI? I'm sure you are. Even if you are, you might be aware of it because AI has been around for a long number of years. But are you using AI within your network already to protect, or are you looking to providers of solutions like Vox who have AI to protect you? What's your strategy today?
It's now definitely a factor with the partnerships and platforms that we're acquiring, and not limited to business messaging, of course, because obviously AI helps you to be proactive and also efficient. The manual validations that we used to do before, you can cut that out using AI eventually. So yes, AI is definitely a tool that our company intends to maximize moving forward.
Fantastic. Now, the customization piece was mentioned quite a bit. Obviously, the anti-fraud piece is required because where there's growth, threats come along. But in order to really propel business messaging to a brand new audience, I'm talking about businesses, organizations, enterprises, small, medium, large, across the Philippines. Do you personally see, are you really thinking, well, actually, yeah, AI really has a material benefit to this and will really help business messaging get to a new audience and ultimately lead to more messages within your network?
Yes, of course, it depends on how it's going to be used, but yeah, definitely you'll be able to put your messages in the right context, and I believe it will eventually help enterprises target their customers better. Maybe I'm not sure if the technology now would allow feedback to enterprise on aside from the obvious reply from users, but yeah, definitely information analytics coming from AI systems will help them in their business.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's the analytics at the moment. So for a full-on omni-channel conversational commerce, call it what you want, solution, AI fully involved in that, within that, optimizing that, it's still something very, very new. And even the largest dedicated business messaging companies out there have not got that working at scale. They may have one or two customers here or there. So that is in its earliest days, but I have no doubt within the next 5 to 10 years.
We lost you there, James.
I've got no, I've got no idea what happened there, but there we go, the wonders of modern technology. So
it's the
Terminator.
Terminator. You need to watch out.
I was terminated.
They're on to us.
I know, they're on to us in the wonderful travel lodge, but they got me. But anyway, Manix, I was saying, so AI really has the potential to push that with business messaging, but it isn't being used every step of the way in the actual conversational commerce chain yet. But I'm sure that will change in the next 5 to 10 years. Fantastic. Pavel, you've been very lucky. We haven't actually spoken to you throughout this session yet, but I'm going to speak to you now. So you're VP of Sales globally for Vox. Your customers, your potential customers, how often does this topic of AI come up in discussions?
Hi, James. Hi, everyone. For sure, the AI is a very hot topic, and I really also like the meme of Alan at the very beginning. It seems like wherever you mention the word AI, the topic gets hotter and hotter. Of course, as the Vox Solutions, we always speak about AI in the context in which we can help MNOs, like eliminating the gray routes and all the other use cases that Alan has been mentioning. And we see that it's really working. After a couple of use cases with MNOs where we installed our firewall, we see that the traffic has increased like 3 or 4 times. So the technology is a really key differentiator when we talk about the network protection and driving the revenue and increasing the revenue for the customers. I think covering it from the global perspective, I think that customers from Asia Pacific are more technologically affine and they would like and more interested in technology more. Whereas, and it's quite clear, you see that technology in Asia, it develops on much faster and incredible pace. And we see that customers from all over the world, like Africa and Latin America, they're also catching up and they're getting more and more interested into this topic. I really enjoyed this round of discussion. I just want to say that AI, it's all about the use case and it's all about the way you implement it for yourself. Either it is a vendor that helps the MNO, or it is a MNO that wants to explore different AI strategies like for customer success, for conversation with the customer, for customer support. It's all about the execution and implementation. And I would like also to say that for any customer that is planning to introduce AI, its most important thing is to start small and with the baby steps. We start kind of like the POC to assign a couple of engineers, data miners, who could explore what could be the use case, involve senior management, starting rolling out, present the use case, how exactly it's working, what are exactly the advantages of it, and start scaling one by one, as larger and larger. As you said, James, at the very beginning, and you said, Alan, AI, it's such a buzzword and such a big scope. Sometimes enterprises, not only MNOs, but the enterprises in general, they're even afraid to start because they do not know even where to start. So
Pavel, it's not just AI, it's business messaging as a whole. We
yes.
all on this call, and most of you watching and listening will travel regularly, attend conferences in person, online about business messaging. You have someone saying, oh, WhatsApp is better for this. No, RCS business messaging is no SMS, no email, no, use the enterprise app. And if you're an enterprise and you're not doing much beyond perhaps email and a few digital ads, you're coming to get some education and some direction from people. You can probably often leave scratching your head going, what should I be using? Oh, do you know what? I'll continue doing what I've always been doing. There's confusion. And what you mentioned, Pavel, is great. It's just get started, whether it's business messaging, whether it's AI, whether it's anything like that, bring it into your business, start using it and refine it as you go along. Don't just sit there on the sidelines waiting and waiting and waiting until you think it's perfect, because it never will be perfect, because this world, as we've heard from Alan, AI has moved on in leaps and bounds, and the new version of ChatGPT 4.0, wow, what an absolute sea change to what it was. Now, one thing we actually haven't talked about is the cultural aspect. Stanley, you live in South Africa. Obviously, you're covering Asia for Vox, but you know a lot about Africa as well and everything. Can we just have let's go a little bit global with this, an African perspective on AI. Do you see the average person on the streets of South Africa, etc., being receptive to AI coming into their lives and possibly also where business messaging is concerned?
I think at the end of the day, I mean, we live in a world whereby we need to be flexible so we can adapt to the changing market conditions. So it doesn't matter where you go. You move into a supermarket today and you find a robot serving you. You're used to having a cashier there where you can talk to the person, but now there is a robot. Then you have to take your groceries and they finish.
Well, you are the robot. You've got to do the work. It's like, I think they need to give me a discount for that.
You've got to do the work now. And yeah. Of course, we used to seeing someone smile, and the robot cannot smile, of course, right? So there's that human element factor of it. So, but you need to understand that things are changing, and as things are changing, we need to be flexible enough to adapt. But now also as a technology provider, you need to make sure that you are relevant to your
And you bring people with you. And this is something I talked about with Alan before. You bring people along on the journey with you. You've got to do that. Manix, from your perspective in the Philippines, how receptive are people to AI? Do lots of people have the likes of Siri and this, that, or other in their homes on a daily basis? Is that starting to happen in the Philippines?
Maybe not yet as popular. I for one, I have Alexa at home.
Alexa.
And so, yeah, my youngest daughter loves playing with it. But
it's a great educational tool as well. Yeah.
It has yet to, I'd say, really weave into our digital lifestyle as of now.
Yeah. It will, I think, but this customization, personalization element, when it understands what you like, what you don't like, it's able to choose the radio station you like, put it on immediately, can detect from your tone of voice that you haven't had a great day at work or whatever it might be, and it does something and reacts in a different way with writing. There's huge potential. So it's early days and early doors for it, but for me, we're coming up to the close of this webinar already. Believe it or not, we've nearly been an hour with you already. But I think for me, the understanding actually that AI, and I said in the introduction, Alan has been working with AI for 10 years. It's not, I was totally incorrect. It's way, way more than that. And AI has actually been around for decades. That's something we've got to remember. This is not a new technology, but the development of it has accelerated rapidly in recent times and will only accelerate even more rapidly. Alan, can we just have a closing word from you? Do you think within the next 5 years, that certainly when it comes to the customization of things, that AI will become absolutely mainstream and enterprises, organizations of any size and shape will be able to take advantage of it? Is it development of it going that fast?
Yes and no. It's hard to predict. So we see generative AI, everybody gets onto the hype and goes, wow, it's amazing, let's use it. But realistically, how many people are using it for anything other than making your email sound a bit more professional or, that type of thing, right? It is very helpful, but how effective it will be, when will we trust it to make those types of decisions that we expect humans to make? I mentioned about fraud. I mentioned about blocking messages. It's, in the past, we would have used AI to identify that these are issues, but making the decision, we want humans to do it because ultimately the responsibility needs to fall back somewhere. We see, driving, like Tesla, and others doing, autonomous driving, and how it's apparently more safe than humans on average, but that doesn't mean that when the robot driver crashes, who's liable? I think there's such a minefield of things coming up with it that AI will start in the background, like we've been doing for those use cases, like Pavel mentioned. More and more will come to the fore, but I think there's a huge amount of work to do legally and societally for this to kind of become mainstream. Maybe, I don't know, I'm an engineer, I'm probably a bit pessimistic about it. Some other engineers are predicting that we will have AGI, so general intelligence, so some, a machine that's like us within 3 to 5 years. So maybe at that point, they'll solve the problem.
And paired with a robot from
about
Boston.
it, so.
Paired with a robot from Boston Dynamics, and
it's a Black Mirror episode waiting to happen. I can see, but ultimately, I mean, it's hard to predict. I don't think the first time, even go back to technology, the first time I saw the kind of deep learning in action was where it was playing a game. It was using deep learning to play like an Atari game, and I thought, oh, it's able to play it. It was actually using the video, like it was looking in a camera, looking at a TV screen to do it. And that's what blew my mind at the time. I was like, wow, because AI up to that point was It's just the
Well,
brain
folks,
part of it.
we've got to end. It's top of the
Yeah.
hour, but I think many of you will remember the film War Games with Matthew Broderick. That was his first.
Would you like to play a game?
Remember that? Would you like to play a game? And the only game was literally no one's a winner and don't play. So, but we're pleased to say when it comes to business messaging, we are absolutely playing with AI, and it doesn't harm working with neutral providers of solutions who are not voice aggregators and SMS aggregators like Vox. And indeed, when it comes to the authoritative number data side of things, working with neutral companies who do not carry voice or SMS like XConnect. So that's it from me, over and out. Manix, thank you very much for joining us from the Philippines. Alan from Ireland. Stanley from down in South Africa. Pavel, are you back home in Dubai at the moment, I think?
Yes, sir.
Yep. You're in Dubai, and myself from the wonderful Travel Lodge in Finchley in London. So all of you, thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to joining you soon on another Vox Solutions webinar. All the best, and thank you. Have a great rest of the day wherever you might be. Bye for now.
Thank you so much.
Okay.